everybody? Tyrone TG3 here. Pocket the Monster Horizons. Episode 63, 64, and 65. Episode 63 is titled An Ice Battle, Cold-Eyed Grusha. Episode 64 is A Shadow Creeps Up on Glassadale Mountain. And episode 65, Liko and Ametheo. So, man, this was the Liko arc, or the Liko's, second exam arc, and man, it was nuts. It was nuts. A lot happened. It was pretty crazy. I'm not even gonna lie. Now, I know it's been a while since these episodes came out, and I'm dangerously late on them. I've been in a little bit of a funk when it comes to reviewing these and then streaming and doing all of my major responsibilities, and I do apologize for that, but the show must go on. And I gotta tell you, let's get straight to episode 63 and just get through the summary. And obviously these episodes are old by this point, so I'm gonna go through them as quickly as possible. But essentially, they end up at Glassadale Mountain so that Liko can challenge Grusha. And at first, I believe they don't get to just straight up do the fight. I believe they explain some things about Grusha first. So you know that at the beginning, Grusha had started off as a snowboarder, a famous snowboarder. And then he wound up getting into an accident and twisting his ankle. But before we even get into that, we can see a bunch of Citadel, and they're sliding down the mountain. So Dot, Liko, and Roy end up sliding down the mountain with the Citadels. They basically do it as a fun little activity. And then at that point, when they finally do meet up with Grusha, because Grusha ends up saving them from almost falling over, at least showing up right on time before they fell over, because Liko and Florgato were about to fall over. And then they learn, I love the joke that they saved themselves from falling off the cliff. And then when we look, the cliff's only 2 feet. It's only 2 feet. It's very shallow. It's not a problem at all. It's pretty hilarious how that happened. But essentially, Grusha ends up battling against Liko in this one after we learn some backstory about Grusha. And in the fight, it's pretty one-sided. It's very one-sided. Both Hatrim and Florgato end up basically just getting snowballed, no pun intended, against Cetitan. Cetitan's the one that does most of the major damage here. I believe Grusha had another Pokemon. I'm trying to remember what that other Pokemon was. I believe... What was that other Pokemon in the fight? What was that other Pokemon? Oh, Cetitan was the main Pokemon. Oh, Altaria. Yep, because Altaria can turn into an ice type. That was the crazy part. Because Altaria would normally have a quad weakness against ice because it's dragon and... because it's dragon and flying. Yeah, Altaria is a weird Pokemon. So it's dragon and flying, but I believe it turns into a fairy type once it Mega Evolves. But Mega Evolving isn't a thing anymore. So Grusha opts to terrestrialize it into an ice type, which means that it's now what would have been a quadruple weakness is now a resistance, which is, it's good for strategy. It's definitely good for strategy. The funny part is, though, Altaria is one of the few Pokemon that has a quad resistance to Florgato. So Altaria actually had a better advantage before it was terrestrialized. Because when it's terrestrialized, it turns into a single type, ice type. When it wasn't terrestrialized, it was a dragon/flying type, which means it had a quad resistance to Florgato. So why did it terrestrialize? To make Ice Beam do stab damage, I guess? I don't know. I'm looking too deep into it. It's just some fight, and at this point, it's very clear she's gonna lose. It's not even close. It's not even... I mean, I think the best shot Liko does is use Leaf Storm, or not Leaf Storm, what was it? Magical Leaf inside of Cetitan's mouth. And that does the most damage. And then after that, it's very clear. She's getting her butt kicked. And she loses. And once she loses, unlike Rhyme, who gave Roy a second chance, Grusha basically goes, nah. And it's actually pretty interesting here. Larry... When Larry did the test, Larry let Dot win even though Dot lost the battle. Rhyme gave Roy another chance, even though Roy lost at first. Grusha points out both of those things, and Grusha's like, I'm not doing any of that. Results are all that matter. If you don't win the fight, then you don't win the test. And why would I give you a second chance? It's a test. It's over. You lost. It's kind of harsh, but that does question the logic of the other two teachers. They gave the exact same test. So why is Grusha so, pardon the pun, cold about it? Obviously, there's more to come, and I'm going to watch those episodes in order to elaborate on them. But for now, the show never backs up on this, by the way. Liko does not get a second chance. Grusha does. He does appear in a future episode. He doesn't turn around. He doesn't have a change of heart. He legitimately fails Liko and moves it along. That's it. Liko, unlike Roy and Dot, don't get other chances. They don't get a lucky chance to get their passing grade despite the results of the fight. They just fail. And that's it. It's kind of messed up. Whatever. Well, we move on. And we're on episode 64 at this point. And she's pretty bummed out about it. She is not feeling it at all. Roy and Dot essentially try to make Liko and Florgato and the other, they try to make Liko feel better by going to like the highest peaks of Glaciadillo Mountain. And they want to do that to just cheer up. It's like a nice little sightseeing adventure to cheer up. Well, unfortunately, on their way to go do that, they end up getting sidetracked and they wound up getting separated. And this is mostly due to Spinel. Now, Spinel's up to something. And Amateo learns of Spinel's plan a little bit to the point where he's curious enough to follow Spinel. And at this point, he basically traps Spinel and Liko in the same spot while they're fighting. Because they end up making eye contact with each other, Amateo and Liko. So Amateo makes it a goal in order to get Terapagos. Because, you know, Terapagos is still a plot point here. While he's doing the fight, Cerulege comes in and fights off against Florgato. Now, Florgato's doing a little bit better, but Cerulege and Amateo have gotten a lot of training and can terrestrialize now. So they basically kick the crap out of Liko. Liko is losing a lot of fights. Now, I want to tell myself that, like, when the series progresses a little bit more, maybe Liko will become a lot more competent of a battler. Because if you look at her track record right now, it's terrible. It's very bad. Like, she has been losing pretty much ever since she's gotten to the academy. I think she's lost every fight. I don't think she's won a single battle except against her friend, whose name is escaping me right now, and that's bad. But yeah, she hasn't won a single fight. And that's concerning. But we do see that in the middle of this fight, Spinel shows up and gives Umbreon the pink ruby item, the item that makes it so, like, it's kind of like the Berserker gene. Essentially, this thing, when it activates, it makes Umbreon's power shoot up, but it also makes Umbreon go crazy, like in a frenzy. So it ends up fighting off against Amateo and Liko. So they have to basically work together. They end up escaping in the fight, and Spinel goes off into the cave. Spinel uses that as a diversion to trap them in the cave together, and then leaves. At that point, Liko and Amateo have to figure out a way out. But before that, they wind up warming themselves up. Liko figures out that there's some like dried up grass and sticks. So once they gather that, they have Cerulege use its fire in order to create a campfire. And we get a nice little bond moment between Amateo and Liko. We learn that both their grandparents, Liko's grandmother and Amateo's grandfather are pretty much tied together in a way. And the reason that they want to discover more about Terapagos and Rayquaza and all of that. Like, they learn that they're not that different. Amateo kind of denies this at first, but he slowly but surely starts to see the similarities. At that point, Liko realizes that there's a draft in the cave and basically talks with Amateo on a way to get out. While this is happening, by the way, and we move on to episode 65, the two episodes are kind of glued together. We move on and we see that Roy and Dot end up meeting with Onyx and Sango. Now, Onyx and Sango are there specifically to be diversions. They're there specifically to keep Roy and Dot at bay so they don't meet back up with Liko. They try to send a distress call to Freed, and Freed winds up getting on Charizard and headed his way over to Glaciadeo. While all that's happening, we see that the battle is keeping them like in one spot for a while, so they can't go off to find Liko and mostly Liko. Once Liko and Amateo get out of the cave, however, that's where the problems start to brew up, at least for Amateo. Meanwhile, we cut back to the battle with Roy and Dot, and it's very clear they're being stalled. Grusha comes up, and Grusha winds up fighting both of them off and is able to get them out of the way. That causes Onyx and Sango to retreat, but they know they've been distracted long enough. But thanks to Grusha, they're able to find Liko once Liko finally escapes. Unfortunately for Amateo, Liko and Amateo escaped together. So unfortunately, when we look, we see that Amateo and Liko are leaving the same area together without Amateo pursuing Liko anymore. And that's all caught on tape, which is later sent to Amateo's grandfather. Because that ends up happening, we have recorded footage of Amateo essentially helping Liko, which is against the Team Explorers' plans, and thus Amateo is kicked out of Team Explorers. Yep. He is discarded from Team Explorers. He's basically banished like Zuko from Avatar The Last Airbender. He is casted aside. So now Amateo is off to try to redeem his honor, restore himself, get a redemption. He's casted aside now. He's been abandoned. He no longer has the support of his team nor his grandfather, the leader. And that leaves him in a very messed up spot. Liko, on the other hand, ends up meeting up with Grusha, Roy, and Dot, and later on Freed. We learn more about the ruby that was used on Umbreon in order to make Umbreon go into a frenzy, but after that we don't get much information, but they are able to make it to Glaciadeo Mountain's peaks, and thus get a view of the highest spot in Paldea, which is a really nice moment for Liko and the others, and Liko gets to look back and reflect on all these things, and she even thinks about Amateo. After that, they head back to the academy, and the episode basically ends from there. Honestly, this great, very plot-heavy stuff going on. Great development with Liko. Great development between Liko and the interaction with Amateo. Great progression of the plot. It's always fun when Spinel gets involved, too, because you always know he's like 5 steps ahead of everybody. He's playing 5D chess with everybody, so that's always a great stance on what's going on. And to see that they have not drawn back on Liko failing her exam. Obviously, they may touch on it in the next few episodes, but as of now, yeah, Liko failed the exam with no chance of like a redemption right now, and it's very interesting to see. It's very noticeable in the way that we're really thinking like, what's the show gonna do now? How does she progress? How does she go about exams for terrestrialization? How will she be able to dress like? Obviously, we know these things later on, but as of now, it's a mystery, and I do like it. I do like that they stand on their principles about it. Like I like that they don't falter and go back on it. It's very rare for Pokemon to stick to their guns on a decision with any of their anime series. So it's very interesting to see that they decided to stick with this, and I'm very curious to see how they're going to be moving forward with it. But I really do like the Amateo and Liko development too. I also really like the fact that he's banned from Team Explorers now. But obviously, we all knew that was going to happen at some point. Everybody's been making the comparisons of Amateo and Zuko from Avatar The Last Airbender. So it's very, very interesting to see how he's going to make that comeback. It's very clear they're already working together anyway. And they've been working together a lot of times. So we obviously are going to see some form of Amateo and Liko team up at some point, like a permanized team up. But with that being said, if I had to give the episodes a rating, the first episode which is episode 63. I would definitely give that I'll give it a solid 8. The other 2 episodes get a 9 out of 10. Like, they're just really good episodes that tie into the plot, that do a great job giving us some lore, great development between the characters. Can't get mad at anything here. Honestly, I'm impressed on all fashions as to the events that have transpired and what's to come. So I obviously know the next 2 episodes, Systems Intrusion, Crisis at Naranja Academy, and Shine Terrestrialization, Liko versus Roy. That'll end out the Terrestrialization debut arc, or the Naranja Academy arc, and then we'll be moving on to what's known as the Rayquaza Rising arc. Which I do love how they have these like chunks. I do love how Pokemon Horizons separates things in chunks. So episodes 66 and 67 will be reviewed together. A System Intrusion, Crisis at Naranja Academy, and Shine Terrestrialization, Liko versus Roy. Those episodes are definitely queued to be reviewed together. And then we'll move on to the new series, the new saga, which is the Rayquaza Rising saga. So obviously, we have a lot to cover and a lot of ground to take place, and I will be trying to pick back up on those at some point. So with that being said, I will see y'all then, everybody. Tyrone TG3